Hi, welcome back to Weatherford Daze. I'm Rachel, this is Jason, and we are very, very thankful to be back this week. We did not have an episode last week, for which we apologize. For those of you who stayed to the end of our last episode that did come out, we did do a little explanation. Our son, who has severe autism and anxiety, was having a very rough several weeks. And so
are we, and because we have to help him out, yeah.
So for those who, maybe listened to some of the last episode but didn't get all the way through it, the explanation for why that was a little bit of a lower energy episode was that we were both very, very sleep deprived and just exhausted. So
yeah.
I'm thankful we were able to record that episode and get something out, but yeah, it feels much better this week to not be quite so sleep deprived.
Yeah.
So this is the life sometimes of being special needs parents, but yeah, we are very, very thankful for those of you who prayed for us. We really do appreciate it, and he is doing much better now. Not quite 100% yet, but getting there. So.
Yeah.
But anyway, yeah, we're glad to be back. This is week 3, I guess, of August, but week 2 of our pirate series. We skipped a week, and tonight, this time. So this time we are going to be discussing the wonderful pirate film, Captain Blood.
Yes, and don't be turned off by the title. That's the guy's name. So if that helps out, that's not a bloody movie, but it's darn good.
I thought it was interesting because, we come to find out that our hero captain is not only the name doesn't come just from being a pirate, or it's not ironic just because he becomes a pirate. It's also, he's a doctor, which that was kind of the thing that he chose to do. So
he doesn't start out being a pirate. He's a physician with the name of Blood, and so I was like, that's unfortunate, because they're like, like what doctor should I choose? Well, that Dr. Blood.
Back in the time when they they let people's blood and leeching and all this kind of stuff, because so the title, it would be even more appropriate back then to be Dr. Blood than it would be now.
Yikes.
Yeah. I thought that was really kind of fun of the author, which this is actually one of those that was a book that was turned into a movie.
Yeah, I was telling Rachel, I don't know of any of the big tentpole kind of pirate movies that were made during this time that weren't somewhat inspired by the author Raphael Sabatini. And he wrote, in the early 1900s, he wrote lots of very period pieces and swashbuckling buccaneer stuff. And he wasn't just a pirate author, but they had those elements in it. And it was just ripe for the picking for this time period. They were like, let's make period pieces with action and adventure and tell a story that you want to get behind. And Black Swan is like a Sabatini tale as well.
It seems like he did pull a lot from history and from stories that have been around that time period. So this is one of those that, it's not completely historically accurate or, based, but he pulled from different actual historical people and events and things that had happened at that time. So there's a lot of
these rebellions that were happening and who was the king at the time. Those were historical. Mm-hmm. Whether the characters are historical or based off of pastiches of historical people, maybe, who knows? But entertaining nonetheless.
I did a little research.
Oh, you did?
Yeah, he did actually base this off of a doctor who was falsely accused because of the whole thing, and then sent over and imprisoned and escaped. The doctor that he based it off of did not become a pirate after that, but did escape from slavery and was able to get back home. So, yeah, a lot of that story was actually historically based, which I thought that was really fascinating.
But you got to make him a pirate. That makes it
Yeah.
fun. And that does create some additional depth in this story. I would tell you this: it's the Black Swan was very much a action adventure and very straightforward. And I enjoyed it, but I enjoyed this one a little bit better because there was just these elements of real characterization that came out and choices that characters make. And I was talking to Rachel earlier today, and then just there's a lot of points that we're going to talk about, but I hope.
I feel like in the pirate world, like the Black Swan, your main character was kind of an Aladdin type. He was a diamond in the rough.
Yeah.
And for this one, our main character is an Aragorn. He really is just this very honorable man from the very beginning. Even though he gets into a lot of things, his, who he is at the core of him doesn't really change. We don't see this huge character growth in him, though there is some growth, but the core of him just being somebody who is very honorable from the entire time, that doesn't change.
Yeah.
Like, and I feel like, that's the Aragorn character.
It's his choices, I think, that expand. But it all comes from a core of who he is, and his name is Dr. Peter Blood. What he is exposed to, the situation he's exposed to, he just kind of comes back. It's his home. When you have like hold an instrument, you have like the home. That's his core. He's going to approach different situations, but they're going to be from that moral base. It's not going to be something he just invented a personality quirk he invented 5 seconds ago. It's something that's embedded in him to be, and he's just going to be who he is, and that's in the story just throws things at him, and he's going to adapt to that, but it's going to be from that moral center. He has a very good moral center. Is that what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So I guess very briefly, we're going to try and bullet point the plot, though I'm not going to go as in detailed as I did last week. That was, oh my goodness, my poor sleep-deprived brain.
I will try,
apologize.
and I'll see if I can if I can zip through. But what we could do is we could kind of go through it and then jump back to little elements. So, of course, this takes place in the late 1600s. It starts off in England. There is what's called the Monmouth Rebellion. It's an uprising against King James II. And for everybody involved, you're either on one side or the other, and everything you do is colored with that. So enter Peter Blood. He is taking care of someone who is wounded, and they're rebels against the king. You can't do that. And he is, of course, like many doctors, his core is a Hippocratic oath. First, do no harm. Take care of the patient that's in front of you. Don't judge them based upon, what side of the war they're on. So he helps them, and that's just not good. So he's pulled into it. He's done nothing wrong. He's pulled in with other rebels, and they are all before the hanging judge, Judge Jeffries. And he actually was called the hanging judge because he was big into just, putting your neck in a noose. So they are all going to be killed, but the king is pulled into, hey, maybe we could sell them into slavery to Port Royal, Jamaica. He's like, that sounds great. We'll get something out of this. So that's what they do. They sell them as slaves. They end up in Jamaica, and the guy who's running the place is Governor Steed, and you've got Colonel Bishop, who works underneath him. And both Colonel Bishop and his daughter Arabella are there when... I'm sorry, you're right. He's the niece because he's the uncle. Yeah, I get it.
Mm-hmm.
So they are looking over the slaves and putting them where they need to go. Of course, as a point of pride, they kind of like say, well, you're worth what, five quid or whatever, 5p or something. You're not worth anything. And he is an educated physician, so that becomes his usefulness, and it makes it where he is in demand by the guy who runs Jamaica, this Colonel Steed. He's got gout in his foot, and so
You didn't mention Arabella bought him.
That's right, but that's what you help me on. You're doing fantastic. Thank you. And so that does become a plot point later because Arabella buying him, he's like, oh, really?
See, that's the thing is
Yeah.
he didn't cooperate with the slavers. So because of his defiance, they were going to send him into hard labor rather than, a little bit easier household type thing. But
he's got a spine.
Yeah,
He's gonna say what he
very
believes.
prideful. He wasn't cooperative, so he was going to be sent into, basically they're going to break him.
Right.
Is the idea. And then Arabella pipes up and she buys him because she likes his attitude. And that...
But he's nobody's,
Yeah, he was not grateful for that.
No.
Which, that does come back around. Go ahead.
And his
and she's the one that actually recommends him to the governor.
To Steed for the gout.
Right. Because his doctors that he has there aren't doing him any good. And he's just like, incompetence and everything. And she's like, well, there is another doctor, so. Right.
And the other two doctors, there's a little interplay between them. And so you'll have to watch the movie to get that. But he does, because he's the official doctor for Mr. Steed, he has a little bit of degree of freedom on the island. That also allows him to communicate with his fellow rebel guys, and he sees that there's some interesting things about them. One of them is a navigator. Another one, he used to be a cannoneer, a gunner. So I was like, maybe we could actually do something where we actually get out of here. So they're starting to plan some kind of escape. Well, there's different things that happen that don't quite allow that to happen as easily as they would have thought. And all of a sudden, there is an attack by the Spanish.
I love the way they introduced that in the movie.
Yeah.
The timely interruption.
Right. There's little text on the screen that they put in there. They don't do that anymore really as much.
Yeah, that was fantastic.
They did that here. But also, I would mention that Colonel Bishop had the navigator Pitt flogged and hurt, and Blood is just like treating him, going, how dare you do these things? It's just the man's inhumanity to man. He's going to call it out, and they're just like, but you're a slave, but he still has that.
He's
that part
going to stand up for other people. Like, it's not so much a what are you going to do for me, but when he sees injustice towards someone else, he puts himself in the way, even if it means he's going to suffer for it.
Absolutely. But the escape does work. They don't have any way of getting away from that, except there's a ship with the night watch, or the Spanish night watch, and they're kind of drunken or whatever. So they
isn't it a pirate ship?
It's just a regular Spanish ship, I thought.
I mean, they come in fighting and firing on them. So
they're firing on Jamaica, yeah. So they get a boat out and sneak on board and take it over. And they've got no money, nowhere to go, and Peter Blood becomes Captain Blood. They all turn to piracy. You see that they come up with a pirate code, a kind of a way of acting. And it's very, I was telling Rachel, it's very corporate and democratic, we're going to have a vote. And, if you get wounded in battle or something like that, we're going to, get you a little bit of compensation.
Well, yeah, and that's the thing. He's like, everybody's going to split everything equally.
Yes.
Except for you'll get extra if you're wounded.
Yeah.
And you get, like, if you lose a hand, you get this much. If you lose, if you lose your right hand, you get more than if you lose a left hand.
Right.
If you lose a leg, like, there's a certain amount, and it just, it's...
He's a really good sailor, strategist, and leader. I mean, maybe it was unexpected to him, but he just fell into it because he's just good like that. They get famous up and down the coast. There are other pirate groups there too. There's a French group. One of the rules that he lays out is with regard to women prisoners or women in battle, and you're supposed to respect that. He gets the French pirates, led by Levasseur is his name, to sign the accord, the compact, whatever. And I don't know if he knew what he was signing, but he did anyway.
I mean, he made it clear that was, the only way that they were going to join forces, because Levasseur comes to him and is like, we should join up. We're both the best pirates here, anywhere, so why don't we, join forces? And Captain Blood is like, well, if you want us to join with you, it's going to have to be under our rules.
Yeah.
And, he stated what that was, and Levasseur agrees to it. And then Captain Blood kind of almost immediately is like, I think I was an idiot there.
Yeah.
That I don't foresee this going well, which he is right about.
Yes. Colonel Bishop, though, has been, he had lost all of his slaves in a revolt. So he is obsessed with locating him.
Well, he's also made to look a fool.
Yeah.
Because he goes out to the ship to thank them, because those who went and captured the ship actually blow up the pirates.
Yes.
That were, there taking over. And so they rescued the entire town. And then, he goes out to say thank you, so much, and see who it was that actually managed to capture the ship and rescue them all. And it's his slaves. And he's like, oh yeah, yeah, so when y'all come back, I'll reward you. And they're like, yeah, no, we're not coming back. Are you crazy? And they, kind of just throw him overboard.
Yes, and Steed kind of is happy to leave too, because then Bishop gets made the governor of Jamaica at that point. And one of the first things he wants to do is send Arabella, his niece, back to England in a way to kind of protect her. We get 3 years later, so he is fully known as Captain Blood, the famous pirate up and down the Caribbean. Arabella comes back, and she has Lord Willoughby with her, who is a emissary sent from England, and they get captured by Levasseur, and he's going to hold for ransom, and that's a no-no because we got females in the situation. And
well, he wasn't going to leave her alone either.
Right.
He had planned on taking her for his own. He's going to send the ambassador to go get ransom, and then he was going to take Arabella for himself.
That is a no-no with regard to the compact. Of course, this we must settle with swords on the beach, and there's a fencing, and of course, why wouldn't you have a movie with Errol Flynn and Basil Rathbone and them not have a fencing match? And they would fence again quite a few times more in their careers. They're very good at it. It's one of the great skills of Errol Flynn with a sword. Okay, Captain Blood rescues Arabella and tries to work things out with her, and even gives her some pearls or something as a token of affection, and that really doesn't work out. She doesn't have the response that he thought, and he gets kind of upset at her back.
Well, and he buys her with pearls too.
Right.
So that's kind of one of the things before the fight, the sword fight. Captain Blood is like, okay, well, I'm going to just buy her off of you. And that's his way of rescuing her from the other captain.
Right.
And the other captain, even though it was okay in the eyes of the rest of the crew, the fact that he wouldn't accept the payment and he wouldn't accept her, it was legal for him to, according to their agreement, for him to do that. And that's why the sword fight happened, which actually kind of proved, I thought it was an interesting power play, just to take a second to do that, because in this, Captain Blood manages to not only rescue the girl like he wants to, he proves to, the other guy's crew that he's the honorable one and that he has a right to do this. Because you have to think about, that was a precarious position, that he's going to actually fight and kill the captain of another crew.
And what are they going to do?
Right. That would be something that would have turned the entire, he could have then had everybody against him. But by setting it up as, I'm going to buy her and you're not going to accept it, he set the other captain up as not looking good in their eyes, which actually protected him in the end to be able to walk away from that. So, it's just, there's so much cleverness.
Plus, it's
In the
kind of
way that he
a
did
mirror of the earlier scene where she buys him.
Right.
Now he's buying her in a way, and so there's a little bit of that, well, touche, fair play kind of situation. They need to go back to Port Royal, and he's going to escort them in. Captain Blood's going to escort them in. They discover, though, that there are French warships that are attacking the city. And the city's not being defended because Governor Bishop is obsessed with hunting down this pirate captain. And so he's all up and down the Caribbean. His dereliction of duty, he's left it undefended. England's at war with France. So Lord Willoughby is saying, please defend it. And they're going, why should we do that? Because the horrible King James and all that, we're not, for him, are we crew? And no way. And he lets them know, what do you mean King James? It's not King James anymore. It's William III, I believe. He's like the new king. And he just suddenly switches and says, well, okay, the corrupt king is gone, and now we've got the new one.
William, the ambassador actually told him, William is prepared to give you a pardon.
Yeah, and all your men.
And all your men, if you will go fight for him. So you kind of see that same, just like the captain or the pirates in the Black Swan were actually said, okay, if you guys will actually help us out with this, we'll pardon you.
Right.
It's that same thing of, the pirates are being told, hey, if you will actually help us out, there's a pardon.
There's a chance to go home as well, to have a life back in England if you so choose.
Mm-hmm.
And kind of free. So again, this is where the big battle happens. I won't go into all the things that happen, and you just have to watch it. It's just all the things you think about pirate movies now, modern pirate movies. You have to watch the old ones because that's when they really, really did all the practical
really
effects.
Beautifully done, isn't it? I mean, it's for these
probably very dangerous to film too. Yeah.
It's just really excellently filmed and portrayed. I think that's an experience that we don't have the beauty that was in this. It's gone. There's so much artistry in the way that
practical
it was
stuff
filmed.
is so much fun, and I do understand the new things that you can do with special effects. That's amazing, but when what they had was models and what they had was sets and what they had was stunt people, and they made it work.
The score too, the musical score to this film was incredible. It's really the full package. I thoroughly enjoyed it.
The score was, I think I saw the word Korngold, and I don't know about this, but this guy Korngold who wrote some music, it is said actually that John Williams stole some of Korngold's stuff for Star Wars.
That's not surprising. John Williams is kind of he's a well-known thief.
This is something that me and William discussed in our podcast too. So, and we actually played some Korngold stuff and played alongside Williams, and because I was trying to tell William, this is the Star Wars theme, and he took it. Well, I'll play it for you later. But okay, so lots of great fighting. When they do come in, they put up the flag of France, so they're like, oh, okay, everything's fine, and then they drop it, and the Union Jack goes up. The battle works out really well in their favor. They are able to, is even able to get Arabella to safety. It ends up, I know I'm skipping over things, but it ends up that the new governor, the governor's area is open and empty, and Captain Blood comes and sits down and kind of puts his hand down over his eyes, and the other governor, the colonel, whatever, he comes in, Bishop. And there's a kind of like a fun little back and forth where he goes, oh, the new governor. And he reveals it's Captain Blood. And he's like, hello, uncle. Because it's almost as if him and Arabella are going to get married or something, or they have a thing going.
Yeah, Arabella totally plays it up when her uncle comes back. Yeah. And, he's been removed from power and Captain Blood has been put in place as the governor. I kind of, watching that scene at the very end, you're kind of teetering between, okay, like, this is extraordinarily cringe, but it's also fun too. You get. I'm just sitting there imagining
1930s movies get a huge pass with regard to anything modern people would say is cringe, because that stuff
but
invented
you know, all
that.
the kids like would be sitting there just groaning and rolling their eyes and going, "Oh, that's so cringe," but then they're actually probably going. But the thing is cringe stuff like that sticks with you, and you can have fun with it. I think that you know, that's one of those that it's so over the top that it's memeable. You know?
It's fun. And here's a quick little quote that I got from somebody on the internet. He said, "Don't, you know," he goes, make your peace with that word cringe. You should not get rid of what's cringe. You should get rid of that part of yourself that cringes. And so basically, you know, because most of the stuff that we find is, quote, cringeworthy is great. And we just need to just find our peace with it and get over it. And there's so much good, fun stuff in those old movies, 1930s, 1940s, 1950s, and we're gonna run the gamut, I think, as we go through our pirate movies the swashbuckling movies we're talking about. But that stuff's so good, and don't neglect those things because people, label them cringe. But
well, let's call that.
Yeah.
So obviously, you know, thematically, you have this very strong character. You have someone, you know, you've got it's enemies to lovers in some ways, but the storyline is more just about his life and his values. And, you know, there's an aspect there of him being betrayed by his rulers multiple times. Feeling, you know, there's that struggle of nobody that is actually in charge is actually worthy of being in charge, and him feeling that need to fight to step up into that position. There's the struggle, you know, we were talking earlier that it's almost a Captain Nemo type story when he decides to become a pirate. You know, the idea of we're men without a country.
Right.
And so we're going to make it on our own here. You know, we've been given this opportunity of having a ship, so we're going to live on the ship. But we're going to govern ourselves our way with honor. You know, it's.
Well, I had also thought about, you know, here we have 1680s is when this takes place, and about 100, I'd say about 90 years after this, you know, a little thing happened in a little place we like to call the Americas, or the British colonies as they were. Was another group of rebels who thought that their king was corrupt, that they were not being represented as humans, represented properly in the way that they had wanted to be, and they revolted. So and also created democratically
throughout history,
a constitution.
Right?
Yeah.
You know, because it was before this that Robin Hood happened, right?
Yes.
Which is a lot of the same kind of idea of. You have a small group of honorable men that are seeing an injustice happening and decide to take matters into their own hands. And, you know, so you've got just this idea repeated throughout history. And it kind of actually struck me as a fiction reader that it's that same theme that gets explored in a lot of dystopian.
Yeah.
You know, you're setting it from like historical in the past to now we're going into the future, into a, you know, completely invented society. But that's thematically a lot of the times what happens in dystopian fiction is this idea of, you know, injustices in government. They tend to be very political in nature. And that idea of trying to create a space and find a space within, you know, a world that's chaotic, where you can just be free to live according to your morals. What
separates a modern person that says, "Well, I'm going to start a revolution and just riot and burn things down," which we've seen in our current societies. I mean, in these fictional stories, we see a person who's led by their morals. They do it in a moral way. Now, again, there's going to be some, destruction of property with regard to these ships and things like that, or there's going to be some robberies that the Robin Hood and his merry men would do, but there is a moral dedication to that. There's at least a core of some kind of goodness there that they still, they haven't just gone, okay, let's just do it chaotically. Let's meet chaos with chaos, or corruption with chaos. We're going to meet a disorder with order. It's just going to be a different kind of order. It's going to be a reordering of the moral framework. You're leading with that's not right. This is right. Let's go about this in the most right way that we can. And Peter Blood and his crew go about that with the writing of this compact thing. I mean, there's a order, there's a rule of things. It's not just every man for himself. It's we're going to have a vote on this, and we're going to do it very democratically. I was thinking about it going, they're doing a pirate constitution of the United States of Captain Blood. So it's, and I thought that our country was kind of founded by a rebellion. It's by rebels. But do we just do rebellion without regard for other human life, or do we do it in a way that reflects a core value? And that's what I respected about this character, is that he had a North Star. He had a focus, and he went in any kind of orientation way that they went. He would be like, he'd come back to that home of a moral value, and I respect that.
It's that when a good man goes to war idea.
Yeah.
It's like, when you can have people who will rebel just to rebel, but when you have someone who doesn't actually want to rebel, that's not his character.
Yeah.
But he's forced into it.
It's the hand he's dealt.
Right.
Or they're,
Then it's, these are the things that actually move and change a society, that push, through those core historical events, the things that really shape history, are when a good man who doesn't want to rebel is forced into it and has the integrity and the intelligence and the charisma to actually make a difference.
And he cares about his crew. He really does.
Yeah.
And it is more of a brotherhood than even the pirate brethren. They're called pirate brethren. His crew looks more like a band of brothers than anything. And it reminds me of what young men would even do years later with regard to, World War II hadn't occurred yet. And that's where you see that phrase, band of brothers, But, we see that a lot in fiction and in plays and things like that, is there's a camaraderie and a shoulder to shoulder kind of way of functioning. And, you think pirates are these bloodthirsty, just butchers, but, he kind of whipped it into shape, it was more of a, respectable kind of thing. Mm-hmm. And he didn't just go, well, I'm a pirate for life. I really love being a pirate. It was something that was in his, it was in his path. It was a hand he was dealt, like I said, and he laid it down when that time was up. I mean, it was a means to an end for a while, but it wasn't like something he was like, I really want to be a pirate. It's just kind of, this is what needs to be done. This is okay. This is our lot. This is what we'll do.
And there was an element back then, like I said, of, when you have countries at war, that it's still, it's not like he's just targeting everybody. There were political targets that were happening with these pirates, where there was actually a protection element happening as well.
Right.
You had Spanish pirates that are attacking English. You had English pirates who are attacking the Spanish, or the French. Yeah. And so they were actually helping in those war efforts. It wasn't just a free-for-all of anybody is a target, anybody goes. even though I'm sure there were some pirates that functioned that way, that wasn't the way that, like we saw in the Black Swan, that wasn't the way that Tyrone Powers was doing, or what was it?
Jamie Waring.
Jamie Boy, yeah.
Jamie Boy.
Or, Captain Blood here. It's, there was an element of we're still helping out people that we politically side with, even though they didn't, they had felt rejected by their country. There still was that element. So, yeah.
Now, in a way, with regard to my faith, I mean, we are all rebels against God in a way, and we are ushered back into the faith by the blood of Christ, so by that blood. But we are not to be part of this world system, and are to rebel against it and have that core and our North Star be Christ. So the thing I want to know is it okay to be a rebel if what you're rebelling against is a corrupt, evil system, even as a Christian?
I think that's what being in the world but not of it kind of means, right? It's that, and Jesus made it very clear that it's like you can function here in the system to a certain extent, but that what God calls you to do is always going to be greater.
Yeah.
So it's like you can live in this world as long as it doesn't as long as you're not told to do something that is against what God tells you to do. And in that case, then it's like, no, we're going, what God tells us is more important. But there's, what is the verse that I'm thinking of? Somebody said that to a ruler.
Well, I know that the Apostle Paul said that insofar as you can have peace with all men, and to respect those in government over you. And I know that even Jesus said, render unto Caesar what is Caesar, give unto God what is God's. Mm-hmm. And so there's an element of that, but people have, I think, interpreted that to mean basically you just lay down and take it, no matter what the government does. And I don't believe that. I believe that you should, live at peace with all men. But if someone comes and forces your hand.
Oh, with Daniel?
Yeah.
When he just continued to pray, and it's like,
it's against the law, but he did anyway.
Yeah, he's one of the highest advisors in the land, and, had been going along with all of the rules that were there for them. But when the rules went against his direct faith, it's like, I'm serving God here. I'm not serving you. And again,
he's rebelling.
Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, you see the same thing. It's like they're commanded to bow down to this idol. And what do? They stand, and it's just like, we're going to go with you as far as we can here, but this is too far.
We protest.
Yeah. So, I mean, that idea of rebelling against something that is directly opposed to what God tells us to do is, it's throughout Scripture, Old and New Testament. And I really feel like, that's the same thing that was happening here is, Dr. Blood was told, well, you can't save someone as a doctor if they're an enemy of our political system, and he's going, I'm a doctor. I heal people. That's what I do. It doesn't matter to me which side they're on. I see somebody here, they're my patient, I'm going to heal them. And being told, no, that's against the law. You're going to be condemned for it.
You're not supposed to give aid or comfort to the enemy.
Right.
And
that's, again, the thing of like, he's wanting to treat someone who's been flogged, and it's, he's about to then be beaten, later on in this show, like right before you have the
timely intervention.
Timely interruption. Yeah. But I think just from all of it, it's like, I think that it's at the core of what everybody I think it's the core of what everybody believes, that there's some things that are worth standing up for and rebelling
Yeah.
you know, and you just have to make sure that you know what's worth actually standing up for. Because I feel like a lot of people will take up a cause and maybe it's not actually worthwhile cause to take up.
I won't take this story away from Leia, my daughter, but you know, Captain Jack Sparrow of Pirates of the Caribbean, the ship wasn't called the Black Pearl, it was just called the Pearl. And he got into some trouble, and actually, Leia said this was actually cut out of the movie. I was like, why? That's so good. Basically, he was carrying slaves, and they were like, oh, you have to take cargo. And he found out it was slaves, and he said, humans are not cargo. And he was completely against that, when that was just kind of like, it's just what you do. Mm-hmm. You carry product from place to another. And he said, humans are not product. So he freed the slaves and sunk the boat. And the boat comes back later, all in painted black. So that's part of the, something that was cut out of the movie. So
you're going to be discussing that when you need to not.
No, but even a man that's considered a rogue and a rapscallion and a scalawag, a pirate, whatever you want to call it, there are core morals of things they just won't do, or things that and so it's the honorable rogue, and I don't think we want to watch films where someone's just completely dastardly from beginning to end, and nothing we can latch onto and say that's a good moral
it's an important
element.
Part of this movie that when offered a cause again, when offered a home, it wasn't, a continued, nope, I like being a rebel, I like, the pirating life, and there's no way I'm going to go back to bowing before a king, and taking somebody else's leadership. I liked being a leader. That wasn't his attitude. He was like, okay, cool. As long as I have a leader, someone else that I can actually follow, then I don't need this. That it wasn't a prideful thing for him.
Yeah.
And I think that that's an important aspect.
He laid it down. It was like he wasn't
like,
doing
I'll
it
lead when
just
nobody
to be a rebel.
else is there to lead, but I'm not leading because, I feel like I'm the best one. So there's a humility that was there.
And you said this was a 10 out of 10. I think this movie, when I was looking up some of the best pirate movies, this was like in the top 10 on IMDb. I don't know where it stands with other rating systems, but I think the ones we've talked about and some of the ones that are in, that we're talking about are in this little series are going to be in the top 10 for whatever reasons. And this one is definitely one you need to find and watch and enjoy. The high quality, from just beginning to end, entertaining, but also a character that you can respect even when they are performing piracy on the high seas.
And I think that it's something that, that, like I said, at the heart of it, this is a storyline that resonates with most people. Because I think that we all face, at times, the idea of, if I'm being asked by someone in authority to do something that I don't agree with, what do I do? How do I, find a pathway forward that doesn't crush my spirit? How do I decide what's worth fighting for? What's worth standing up? How do I decide, And I think that this gives some really good guidelines of what is actually worth standing up and fighting for, and how then to go about laying it down, where the right and the wrong is.
Do you lay down your life in a worthy cause? And, when they say, we will, you can choose a quick death. If you'll only just say you're sorry and say you were wrong and pledge fealty to this corrupt king, do that, and you won't do it, and the death is horrible. It's why we connect with characters, like William Wallace from Braveheart, or different things like that. Is they won't bend or budge even to the end, and because of that, People are inspired by those characters. I mean, Jesus Christ laid down his life. He rebelled against that system, but he let the system kill him. He could have legions of angels. He even says, I could have legions of angels come and protect me and get me out of this situation. But I'm not going to do this because I was sent into this world to shed my blood for as a ransom for many. And we still are, even people that don't believe he's the Son of God are still talking about this to this day, about the crucifixion and what that all meant. So, you can fight something, but you can also fight something by laying down your life.
Mm-hmm. So yeah, great movie. I think that there's a lot that we can see and learn from it. And I think that there's a little bit of pirate, in all of us. A little bit of that rebel, but I think that, when we guardrail it, that idea of rebellion, and we layer it with unselfishness and with a moral compass, like you said, that North Star, which to steer our boat by, making sure that we guard our hearts in that process, that we make sure that what we're fighting for is a good cause, that we understand it thoroughly, and that we're not just being, pulled along by somebody else's tides of fate, but making sure that we're the ones that are directing that. I think that
lots of sailing metaphors and maritime stuff there.
They just lend themselves so well to it.
Yeah, yes.
But yeah, I think we're going to wrap that up there.
We're going to dock the boat into shore and
drop the anchor.
Drop the anchor. We will have another film we're going to talk about next week. I think we're going to do The Crimson Pirate, starring Burt Lancaster, which when I saw that I was like, Burt Lancaster? Really? So we'll have to see. It may be great. It may be like, okay. But either way, we'll figure it out. I hope this pirate is not a pirate who doesn't do anything.
Well, thanks for joining us. We're going to keep exploring the themes of piracy and how those resonate with people.
Yes.
Throughout the centuries.
We're exploring some things here.